We look at food labels all the time and think we've got the full picture. But what if there's a huge, crucial piece of information that we're all missing? Today, we're going to dig into a totally new way of looking at the food we eat. So let's kick things off with a question that, honestly, is probably on a lot of our minds. We've got more information than ever, right? Calories, fat, sugar, organic, non-GMO, the list goes on. And yet, obesity and metabolic diseases are climbing. Something just isn't adding up, which tells us the labels we're using right now might not be telling us the whole story. Yeah, you see this kind of label every single day in the grocery store. It's designed to give you a quick snapshot of what's inside the food, the ingredients, the nutrients, maybe some kind of health star rating. But here's the thing. What if all that information has a giant blind spot, a missing piece of the puzzle that might just be a key reason we're seeing these health trends? Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the problem with our current labels. Then we'll introduce this new idea called food coherence. We'll look at how it's measured, why you can trust the system, and what it all means for our health. All right, so here's the absolute heart of the matter. Current labels are pretty good at telling us what a food is made of, but they tell us almost nothing about how that food actually behaves once it's inside our bodies. And that right there is the huge regulatory blind spot. Think about it like this. The nutrition facts panel is answering the question, so what's in this? But food coherence asks a totally different and maybe more important question. How is this food going to act in my system? Is it going to place a heavy load on my body? Is its natural structure even there anymore? And this is why that question is so incredibly important. The way a food is processed, its actual physical structure, has a direct impact on our metabolism, on inflammation. It literally sends different signals to our brain and our hormones that, over time, can really pile up and affect our long-term health. It's not just about the recipe, it's about the food's integrity. So, how do we actually measure something like this? Well, that brings us to this new concept designed to fill that exact gap in our knowledge. Food coherence. Okay, that sounds super sciencey, I know. But basically, all it means is that food coherence is a measure of how much a food's natural structure is still intact after it's been processed. It's like a score for how close it is to its original whole form. So how on earth do you turn such a big idea into a single, simple number? Well, the key here is that it's not just someone's opinion. It's all based on objective, repeatable measurements made in a lab. It's actually a 4-step process. Now, without pulling out a physics textbook, labs basically run standardized tests on the food. They shine light through it to see how damaged it is at a molecular level, and they run electrical currents through it to test its structural integrity. Then they take all that data and translate it into what it means for our biology. And after all that science, all that complex measurement, it gets boiled down to one thing, a single, easy-to-understand score on a scale from 0 to 100. Simple as that. And this score makes things really clear. You see a high score, say 80 to 100, that means it's a high coherence food, so it's minimally processed. A score down below 49, that's a low coherence food, which is a good sign that it's ultra-processed. It gives you a quick, intuitive way to see where a food lands. Okay, but for any new label like this to actually work, we have to be able to trust it, right? That's everything. And that's exactly why the whole system is built from the ground up to be independent and totally reliable. It all comes down to these 4 core principles. It's independent, so it's not run by food companies. It's measurement-based, so it's about hard data, not opinions. It's transparent, meaning all the methods are out there for anyone to see. And really importantly, it works with the labels we already have. It doesn't try to replace them. And this whole process is designed to have checks and balances at every single step. You have an independent group that sets the rules. You have accredited labs doing the testing. Products get certified. And then there are ongoing audits and a public registry to make sure everything stays accurate and trustworthy over time. It's also really, really important to be clear about what this score is not. It is not a medical diagnosis or some kind of health claim. It's not trying to replace the nutrition facts panel, and it's definitely not a subjective good or bad rating. It is simply an objective tool that measures one thing: how much a food has been changed by processing. All right, so we've talked about the problem, the science, the system, but what does this actually mean for you when you're standing in the grocery store? What's the payoff? Just imagine this for a second. At a single glance, you can see the difference. On the left, you've got a steak, a whole food, with a nice high coherence score of 82. And on the right, a jar of spaghetti sauce, an ultra-processed product with a low score of 23.
Suddenly, the choice becomes a whole lot clearer, doesn't it? And think about the ripple effect here. It's a game changer for everyone. For us, the consumers, it just means clear, quick choices. For public health officials, it's a brand new tool to help shape policy around prevention. And for the food industry, it creates a real, powerful incentive to make better, less processed products.
So it really leaves you with this one big question. In a world that's just flooded with confusing nutrition advice, what if the key to better health isn't more complexity, but more clarity? What if the simplest number on the box could turn out to be the most powerful one of all?